From CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede, and as you may be aware, the Florida legislature in Tallahassee is quickly moving forward with a plan to allow anyone who owns a gun to carry it in public without a concealed weapons permit. As the bill was being heard on the floor of the House last week, I spoke to Fred Guttenberg, whose daughter Jaime was killed in the massacre at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School 5 years ago. I asked for his reaction.
Anger. Listen, Jim, I visited my daughter in a cemetery because of gun violence. And these legislators are putting the needs of a presidential candidate, because he's really more focused on that than he is as on being a governor, ahead of the needs of Floridians. And I can say that confidently because Floridians, by a measure, I think 70, I forget the exact number, but it's 70-something%, don't want them to do this. That has been clear in polls. And what they're getting ready to do is pass what they are calling permitless carry. I call it untrained and dangerous carry, because that's what it is. They failed at their initial announcement when they tried to call it constitutional carry. There really is no such thing. It's a made-up marketing term. So they moved on to calling it permitless, but it is dangerous in every measure. And if you go back to the initial press conference where they brought in a few sheriffs to talk about it, one of them was asked, how will you know if somebody with a gun has a permit, is or isn't a dangerous person? Because we all know dangerous people are now going to run out and buy guns. He said, we'll know after they commit a crime with the gun. That was his answer. So it's a dangerous, dangerous endeavor to just start saying we're no longer going to check and we're no longer going to require training. But as a slap in the face to families like mine, they've gone further, because if you're caught on a school campus as part of this legislation now with a gun, the penalty used to be a felony. They're reducing it to a misdemeanor. For whatever reason, that's what they're going to do as part of this legislation. So if you're a student who wants to commit a crime on a campus with a gun, you now may go out and test it before you do anything, because the penalty won't be significant. I don't understand what they're doing here, except a political decision that is unnecessary, because the lesson of the Parkland legislation that was passed 5 years ago is that it was politically popular to pass gun safety legislation in Florida. Not a single person lost a job. They've all been reelected, or they are currently serving in a different capacity. Look at Senator Rick Scott. He was the governor at the time who led the legislation. He's now a senator. So politically, this is dumb. Morally, this is reprehensible. And sadly, this is going to lead to more Floridians dying because of gun violence.
So then why do you think they're doing it?
Because there is a contender for president who currently serves as governor, who said he wants them to, because he thinks this is going to help him with the base politics in a Republican primary. It is no longer about the safety of Floridians, and I hope every Floridian understands that. And when they had a chance to vote in the future, they start voting all of these lunatics out, because that's what they are.
Obviously, we were talking about permitless carry, but there is also a possibility, although I think it's fading, to be honest, of open carry. I spoke to Speaker Renner a few weeks ago, and he told me he doesn't oppose open carry. He just isn't willing to move forward with it until the sheriffs are comfortable. And since the sheriffs have raised some objections to open carry, he's not supportive at this moment, but he could be supportive at some point. So let's talk about open carry. The notion of being able to go anywhere you want, not just having it concealed on your person, as what will happen with permitless carry, so you won't know if a person is carrying a gun. then you go to open carry where people could sling a rifle over their shoulder and just walk about the city.
And then you're supposed to decide which one of those is a good guy who won't use that rifle and which one isn't. That's the reality of open carry. And by the way, every state where open carry and or permitless carry has been passed, their gun violence rates have gone way up. It does not do anything for public safety. But regarding open carry, listen, this governor, future presidential candidate, has made it clear he supports open carry. Fortunately, law enforcement is against it for now. The majority of law enforcement is also against permitless carry. But there were enough.
But they haven't been speaking up. Why haven't they been speaking up?
Problem. You're 100% right. They found a handful of sheriffs and law enforcement from around the state that did speak out in favor of permitless. The majority are not in favor of this. You talk to cops on the street, they do not want this. They understand the risks, but they're not speaking up. You're 100% right. And I hope they start, because this isn't only about your public safety and mine. This is also about their public safety. They're going to be more at risk of gun violence as well. And they should be using their voices to speak out against this. But open carry, listen, right now, because law enforcement is speaking out against it, it is currently going to be tabled. We saw what happened this week. One of the House members put it out there in an amendment on the bill that's going to be on the floor today and quickly pulled it off. My hope is it won't happen, that they will move on and call what's going to happen now with permitless carry enough. But these people, they're not going to quit. They're not going to stop. And Florida is going to be more dangerous and deadly because of them.
Well, there's also the third thing they've been talking about is reducing the age. One of the major steps that Florida took in the wake of Parkland was to raise the age in which you can buy a gun from 18 to 21. And there's a lot of talk about moving it from 21 to 18. Again, I go back to that interview that I did with the current House Speaker, Paul Renner. He seems fine with the idea of lowering it from 21 to 18. His belief is that, he told me outright that he would support that, because he said that when Democrats had both the House, the Senate, and the White House just recently and passed their gun legislation, which I know you helped advocate for, they didn't raise the age from 18 to 21. So as he said, these are words he used, if the Democrats didn't want to raise it nationally to 21, why should Florida 18, 19, and 20-year-olds be penalized? Why shouldn't it go back to 18? How would you respond to him?
Renner is an idiot. That's how I'll respond to him. And that's just a dumb response, because he fully knows how politics works. And in fact, while the legislation passed in DC made it harder for those under 21 to get weapons, it didn't change the age, because that was what had to happen in order to get any Republicans to join in a bipartisan way. Okay, that decision was made in order to get a bipartisan bill, which what you can debate whether or not that was a good idea. The only reason the age wasn't raised to 21 is because there's too many Republicans who simply will oppose it, who won't put the safety of Floridians, Americans, and all of us first.
By the way, let me just sort of jump in. Renner voted for the raising the age from 18 to 21.
Well, that was going to be point number 2, and why I called him an idiot, and he is an idiot, and he's gone all in on the red meat. It is what it is. Listen, this week they are holding hearings on raising the age to 21.
Or from 21 to 18.
That's why I'm sorry, 21 to 18. Yeah. Last week, the United States Appeals Court upheld a ruling on the age because the NRA sued the state of Florida to bring it back down, to remove that part of the legislation. And the appeals court sided with the state on this one and keeping the age of 21, and found plenty of historical precedent in doing so. So those who oppose it are simply wrong. Raising the age to 21 has saved lives in Florida, and it was the right thing to do.
When we come back, we sit down with the new chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, Christian Ziegler. Stay with us.